Good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining our session on communication temptations. Give them a reason to communicate. Just to let you know who I am, my name's Janet Gallagher, and I'm one of the speech language pathologists here with Sturgeon School Division. I've been around for about 16 years now and doing lots of communication temptations with our little ones that are attending our programs. So if you attended my last session, we were talking about language stimulation strategies, and there's lots of different ways that we can help our kids start talking and help them to kind of move to that next level of their language development. And we quickly touched base about communication temptations at the end of that session. In my opinion, communication temptations is one of the most effective language stimulation strategies that we can use. So we're going to learn a little bit more about those today. So thanks for joining. So yes, communication temptations, we want to give them a reason to communicate. So what are communication temptations? There are strategies where you kind of manipulate your environment or you structure your environment in a way that your child has to communicate with you in some way to get what they want or to get what they need. They may be communicating with you. It might just be an eye gaze. They might look at you like, meaning, I want that, or I need something. They might use a gesture. They might point to something that they want. They might be, it might be a facial expression, or maybe they're using words, single words, or maybe they're even using phrases to get what they want. All of your children are going to be at different levels in their communication journey and their communication development, language development. So the way that they're going to be requesting things may look different depending on your child, right? So I have a little video here that I want to play just to give you kind of a more in-depth explanation of what communication temptations are.
When it comes to early language development, it's important that we consistently provide children with motivation to talk regularly. Of course, we can have a child imitate what we say or name items in a book. Those are great skills to practice. However, prompting your child to name photos in a book or imitate a word is not the same as having them use words independently to communicate their wants, desires, and feelings. Because of this, we need to set the stage for spontaneous language, giving your child different scenarios to best support this essential skill. These are called communication temptations. Let's dive into what these are and how to implement them at home. Think about situations in your everyday life where you have a strong desire to communicate with someone. Maybe you have some really good news to share. Maybe your family is picking up dinner from your favorite restaurant and you want to place your order. Or maybe someone in the house is being too loud and you can't concentrate on your work. What is similar about all of these situations? There is a reward that comes with communicating your needs. For example, your friends can celebrate the good news you shared, or you get a delicious meal after placing your food order, or you can focus on your work if the person making loud noises settles down or closes the door. The same motivation is needed for your child. Of course, their reasons for communication will be somewhat different than yours, but we can create situations and scenarios where they will be tempted to communicate. Almost any activity can be a communication temptation, so long as it's motivating and exciting for your child. So here are a couple examples. Think about a snack that your child loves to eat. Try eating this desired snack in front of them to see if it prompts them to request the snack themselves. If you're playing outside, stand idly by the swing without picking them up and placing them in the seat. See if your child verbalizes that they want to swing. As you can see, these are tempting scenarios that will hopefully encourage your child to communicate what they want. When it comes to setting up these moments, the most important part is to simply wait. If your child hasn't responded after a few seconds, it can be tempting to rush in and start modeling what your child should have said. Resist this urge. Silence in these moments is key. You must give your child the opportunity to reflect and verbalize before doing it for them. If they haven't communicated after about 20 seconds or rely on gesturing or reaching, then you can model an appropriate response such as, "Candy, please," or "I want to swing." When first starting out, it's likely that your child will need you to frequently model words or simple phrases for them to imitate. Imitation skills develop before spontaneous production. When your child does imitate a response, offer them lots of praise. When they get that big round of applause from you and see the happy look on your face, they will be encouraged to talk more. Since these are natural tasks that can be easily incorporated into your child's routines, it's a great idea to practice them daily. Try to focus on these activities for about 10 or 15 minutes a day. If your child gets overwhelmed or annoyed, you can take a pause and revisit these activities the next day or at a later time. However, also keep in mind that a little frustration is normal and to be expected. We want a child to have a small sense of frustration because that is what helps them problem solve. They may be thinking something like, "I really want that cookie. Mom isn't giving it to me. How do I get that cookie?" This is what motivates them to verbalize what they want.
All right. Yeah, so that was a really good kind of explanation of what communication temptations are and how we can use them to leverage our child's motivation to talk. And when I say talk, that can look different. It doesn't have to necessarily be words. Maybe your child is not using words yet, so it might be a gesture. Or maybe if they're using maybe just vocalizations or kind of environmental sounds like animal noises or vroom and zoom, those kind of vocalizations, then we might be trying to tempt them to say single words, right? So it might, like I said before, it might look different depending on your child's level of language. Let's see. You'll have to bear with me with my tech skills. All right. Okay. So yes, that video gave a nice kind of overarching explanation, and I like how she talked about kind of just daily routines and things that would happen to us, like we're ordering out in our family at our favorite restaurant, and so we're motivated and excited because we know what we want to order, our favorite food. So that's motivating for us to give our family our order. So like, it's not just with children, it works with adults as well. But just realizing that there has to be that internal motivation for us to want to try to communicate. So there are many, many different types of communication temptations, and we're going to look a little closer at the different types. The first type is what we call out of reach. So it's pretty simple when we think about it. You're just putting a favorite toy or a favorite object just out of reach, but still in sight, so that your child can see it, but it's in an area that they just can't get to, or it's hard to get, so that they naturally have to come ask you for help to get it, right? So say they have their favorite stuffy, and maybe instead of it just being on the counter where they can easily access it by themselves, you put it up a little bit higher on a shelf so that they can't reach, but they can see it. So then they're going to come to you, and they'll either point to it if they don't have the words. They might grab your hand and take you to that, take you over to it and point. They might say help if they are saying single words. They might say, "I want my toy," depending on, like I said, what level of language they're at. So yeah, putting something out of reach. So maybe it's their tablet that they have at home, or a favorite toy, or a favorite food even. Just putting it in a hard to reach area, but that they can see it. And that just naturally provides that that child with the opportunity to want to request it, right? So just building kind of that into your day where you can put some of those favorite things just out of reach can be helpful in motivating your child to communicate. So that's out of reach. Let's see what the next one is. The next one is bit by bit. And all of these strategies that I would be talking about really are easy to incorporate into your everyday routine, your everyday life. Sometimes you can, orchestrate or organize opportunities that might be outside of your daily routine. And those things can be really, really fun. And we'll see some videos of some of those after. But I know that everybody is busy with life and with busy families. And so if working it into your daily routines is something that can be easy to do and not take a lot of pre-thinking or take a lot of time to organize, right? So we can just almost do it in the moment. And once you start to kind of learn these strategies, you'll find that it's really quite easy to do that. So bit by bit is kind of, I always say, be the keeper of the pieces. So whether you're talking about snack or you're talking about toys, or maybe you're talking about like Play-Doh, something like that, that has pieces that we can kind of control the pieces. So instead of giving your child everything all at once, so like a bowl full of all their goldfish, like a bowl full of goldfish, or giving them the whole container of Play-Doh, or just setting the puzzle down and letting them have at it, which is okay some of the time. But if we're trying to stimulate words and stimulate language, then we do want to have kind of the forethought to kind of be that controller of the pieces, or the keeper of the pieces. So I'm just going to, as an example, so we have Play-Doh here. So instead of just, taking the whole amount out and giving it to your child, let's just take a little bit of time to orchestrate a communication temptation by giving them just one little bit at a time, right? So in that sense, they'll have to ask for more, right? So I want more, or I need more, or maybe they'll just point to it. So we give them one piece, right? So then we wait. So you saw in that previous video, she said, as parents, we really want to just jump in and meet our kids' needs, and we're really good at that. But if we're trying to kind of build those communication skills, we want to wait. So we're going to wait. This is the sign for wait. We're going to wait until they either look at us, or they try or point to it, or they try to say more, or try to say Play-Doh or dough. And maybe if they're putting words together, they might say more Play-Doh. So then they get another piece. And then we continue on. And you can build so many opportunities for them to request in this one little Play-Doh container. So you keep doing that over and over again, and wait. And one thing, the waiting is also waiting expectantly. So you can kind of lean in and look at them like, I'm waiting, like kind of giving them a cue that, okay, you need to say something. And we don't have to say it, but just like lean in expectantly, and like, right? So then once they ask for it in whatever way they ask for it, then once they get all of their Play-Doh, then of course, you know what? Then you can build whatever you want, make whatever you want. But just being, just kind of being in control of dispensing the Play-Doh is a way to build that communication temptation. You can also do it with food, their favorite food, say a snack. So a lot of times we'll rip this puppy open, right? We'll rip this open and just give them the bag, right? There you go. And then maybe they initially ask for a snack, but then once we give it to them, they don't really have any other reason to communicate, right? They don't necessarily have to ask for more, right? Because they have the whole thing. So just giving them maybe one or two at a time. And then there's probably, I don't know how many are in here, 15, 16. So then if you give them two at a time, then you're looking at 8 opportunities for them to ask for more, right? So, yeah, so just instead of giving them the whole snack, just give them a little bit at a time, bit by bit. What's another example of that with a toy? Say a puzzle, because puzzles have pieces, right? So instead of giving them all the pieces at once, you're just going to give them one piece and they'll put it in, and then we wait. So then they might reach for it, but we're going to make it a little tough. We're not going to let them just come in and grab another piece. We're going to kind of do a block, or we'll keep them aside so that they have to ask for more, right? They have to ask for another, either more or piece or bug. This is a bug puzzle, so maybe they would say bug. So yeah, so that's a great way to build in those communication temptations for them too. This is actually a magnetic puzzle, so you could do it the opposite way. You could give the whole thing, but in order for them to catch a bug, they're going to use the magnet, right? So then they lift the bug out of the puzzle. So in that scenario, you would be the keeper of the net and the magnetic net to catch the bugs, right? So you would be the keeper of that, and then they would have to ask for the net to get another one, right? So yeah, so you're kind of controlling the play situation, but in a fun, positive way. What's another really popular toy would be kind of like straws and connectors. And so, I mean, there's a million pieces to those, right? So you could give them 2 straws, but you could be the keeper of the connectors, so that they have to ask for a connector to put the straws together, right? So, and that could last as long as you wanted to. In the video, she said, around 10 minutes. 10 minutes is a good kind of time frame to kind of focus that language stimulation. Yeah, so pick your times. I know I had said in my last video that it's unrealistic to expect you to be doing these language stimulation strategies 24/7. So you know what? 10, 15 minutes here, 10, 15 minutes there is a great way to kind of go about it where you're not feeling overwhelmed. So straws and connectors is another great one, but any toys, any favorite foods, yeah, is a great way to build those communication temptations by offering bit by bit, so little bits at a time. Our next strategy is, is the power of the pause. So using the power of pause is a great way to kind of scaffold a situation where your child can fill in the ending. So to familiar songs, to familiar books or familiar routines that you have at home. So things like ready, set, and then you pause. And how many times have you said ready, set, go, right? So if we're setting them up in a situation where we want them to spontaneously say a word, that's what that, like, on their own, then we're going to give them that pause. So ready, set, and then hopefully they'll say go. If they don't have the word, maybe they'll point, go. Or maybe, sometimes kiddos might not say the word exactly how we would say it, but they might say ready, set, oh. So maybe they don't have their g sound, or maybe they can't put their g sound at the beginning of a word. So maybe they'll be ready, set, oh, but they're still attempting to communicate, and they're still attempting to fill that word in, or fill in that pause. So that would be kind of probably like just a routine phrase that you use throughout your day. If you're at the park and you're going down the slide, ready, set, and even if you're holding them, ready, set, and wait till they fill it in, and then they go down the slide. Or like just familiar kid songs like Head and Shoulders. So head and shoulders, knees in, and then you pause. So in hopes that they'll say toes, or maybe they'll point to their toes. And people games are great, like peekaboo and tickle, that kind of thing. So maybe like you're playing peekaboo, and so they know what's coming, they know the phrase, and then you give the pause, Pika, and you hold it, and then boo, and maybe they'll say boo. That's our hope, that they'll say boo, or they'll try to do something. Maybe they'll grab your blanket down and pull it down, and that would be their way of saying boo. So depending on the language level, again, what our expectation would be for a response or a request from them. What's another one? Oh yeah, I did bring, like, this is a very familiar book for most families. Brown Bear, What Do You See? So if you're reading a book, like, kids love to read the same books over and over and over again. And that was one of our language stimulation strategies we talked about before, was repetition, right? That's how we learn. As adults, as children, we need things to be introduced to us over and over and over again before we kind of incorporate them into our knowledge base. So brown bear, what do you see? Right? So we can say, brown bear, what do you? And we wait and wait. And like we talked about before, sometimes we have to give them like at least 10 seconds before they might respond, right? So brown bear, what do you? Lean in expectantly. And they'll say, see, or maybe they'll point. And then if they know this book quite well, I see a red bird looking at me. And maybe they know the animal. So red bird, what do you see? I see a, and maybe they know yellow duck is next, right? I see a yellow duck looking at me. So pausing, I see a, so they say yellow duck, or maybe they'll say duck, or maybe they'll go quack, quack. But just giving them enough time to fill something in if they want to try, if they have the words to request it. So you get an idea with that. But I'm sure your kiddos have lots of books at home that they like to read over and over again, or their favorite books. So you could really do that with any book. This one's easy because it's a pattern book. And so it's the same thing over and over again, which might make it a bit easier for them. But if they know their favorite book really, really well, and you read it every night, then you can, just pause, and they might want to fill it in if they know it well enough. So the power of pause. I'm going to share another video, and this kind of gives examples of bit by bit. So give them a little bit at a time. Pausing, so what we just chatted about, and then the out of reach. So we'll see if we can.
Hi, I'm Kate, and this video is called Communicative Temptations. We wanted to make this video to show one of the key pieces of advice that we give to families when we're working with them to help develop their children's expressive language skills. The idea behind this piece of advice is creating opportunities and environments where we can tempt children to have a go at communicating. It goes slightly against everything you will have been doing as a parent up until this point, which is making sure you meet your child's every need and making sure they are happy and content. It is about creating these situations where we push the child to want to initiate a communication, initiate an interaction to try and get a message across. We're not worried about how they do it. We want them to make that initiation through a gesture, through a look, through a vocalization. If they use a word, brilliant, but we're happy with a reach. It's about that. You've got something I want, and I want to show you that I want it. One of the easiest ways to do this is with using food and doing it at snack time. At snack time, don't just give them the whole snack. Get a bowl, give them part of it, and tempt them with the rest of it so they initiate for some more. Do this with fruit. Don't just give them the whole plate. Give them a separate plate, put one piece on it, and then tempt them with the rest so they make that initiation. Don't just give them a whole cup of juice. Give them just a little bit and wait for them to initiate for some more. The other way you can do this is finding opportunities through the day with their toys and having a go and doing those turn-taking games and things that you would do with rolling a ball or blowing bubbles or an action song if you sat down together. But rather than just keep repeating it and going back into it, stop, look, wait for that anticipation, and then wait for that, oh, that request, I want some more. Some toys lend themselves to creating these opportunities better than others, but a car track or a click-clack track is great. However, if the child's got all the cars out, or they're always able to get the car and just keep having turn after turn after turn, then they'll obviously be enjoying themselves, but they haven't got that opportunity to request. So take all the cars away, and then when the car goes down the track, quickly grab it, so the child has to reach out and make that initiation to request that they want it again. Instead of just repeating an action back and forth, you can stop, hold on to the ball, or stop the action song, wait, look, build up that anticipation, build up that temptation for the child to reach out and request again. The other thing that we sometimes suggest to families is if the children don't want to communicate for a lot, or they're not motivated by very much, we might suggest that you try and make things a bit harder by, say, putting the snacks in a top cupboard, or putting things out of reach so they have to come and find you and ask for it. We don't want there to be any frustration or this to cause any negative feelings about communication. Communication should always be a success for a child. So if you're trying any of this and it is causing frustration, please stop. Instead of having the really tempting items in reach all the time, every now and then, put them somewhere harder to find so your child has to come and find you. I hope you found this video helpful and those examples useful to explain the advice that we give to you. Like I said, this is about creating those environments where we're making the child want to communicate. So if that becomes frustration, just stop. We always want communication to be successful, and the child must feel that success when they're having a go. Obviously, you can always contact us if you need any further advice, and we can help you over the phone at the moment. So please do give us a call.
All right. So I like how she was able to show some of those examples of bit by bit, pausing, and out of reach. I do want to comment on the her comment about the frustration level. It is really important to keep our attempts for communication and our interactions positive, for sure. There does need to be some degree probably of like, oh, I can't get this, or I need this, or a small amount of frustration, I would say, is okay, and that can kind of be motivating, but by no means do we want to like hold out until they're completely frustrated and having a meltdown on the floor. And we don't want that, because that does make everything then, like, communication we don't want it to be negative, right? We don't want that negative connection between I want this, but I need to do something for it. Like, we want the child to experience success, right? So I would say, trying it maybe a couple times, and if they're not giving you anything, then that's when you stop it. That's when you would stop and model for them. Oh, more juice, right? But just keep trying it, like repetition, and keep revisiting it, right? So that they start to learn, okay, I do need to do this. And they might be more apt to put themselves out there and attempt to communicate if we continue kind of to offer these opportunities for them. But like she said, yeah, if it's complete frustration, we don't want that either. So there's a fine kind of balance there. Yeah, so let's see what our next one is. Oh, this is going to start to play again. Let's see.
Hi, I'm Kate.
That's not what I wanted. Sorry, guys. Okay. Like I said, I'm not very techy.
Hi, I'm Kate, and this video is called
There we go. All right. I think Shay helped me with that. Thank you, Shay. Anyway, the next one is hard to operate. And these ones can be really fun. So this is where we sometimes call it sabotage. We're trying to sabotage our children, but just to a mild degree that they're not getting totally frustrated, right? So it's sabotaging a situation where it's just making it's hard for them to get what they want. So if you're looking, your child will have to ask you for help with something, or they'll have ask you for help to make something work. They could ask by making a sound, again, by saying words, or by handing you what they're needing help with, right? So some of these opportunities, one really great way is putting an object in a desired object into a clear container that's hard to open. So they can see what they want. They can see that their favorite thing is in there, but man, they can't open it, right? Or they're having trouble opening it. So they have to bring it to you and ask for you to open it. And again, that might be them just handing it to you. But again, that's taking a turn in that communication interaction. It might be that they're pointing to it, like, I want that. It might be that they might say open, or they might say, I want my car, right? If you have their car in there. So I did bring like just a clear container, any clear container with a hard to open lid. So this one is a screw-on lid. So that's hard for little kids. Sometimes it's hard for big people too, like me right now, because it's cross-threaded. But their little hands can't reach that big, lid, right? So they can see in here, oh, there's some little cars in there. I would really love to play with those cars. Man, how am I going to get those cars? I can't open it myself. So going to mom or dad and pointing, or like, open, open. So then open it up and then reach in, and they get one of their little cars to play with, right? So then you can play with it for a little bit, and then, oh, but we have more in there. We have 2 more in there. So, oh, it's fun to play with 1 car, but it's even more fun to play with 2 cars, right? So again, there we go. And we set it there right in front of them so they can see it. And we wait, right? We wait. So waiting, waiting, waiting. They won't really want to have another car so that they can race them, right? You need 2 cars to race. So again, they come to you, point, open, I want another one, more cars, depending on their language level. So then you would open it up again, they get another car, and now they have 2 cars that they can race, or you can race with them, right? So yes, putting desired object in a clear, hard to open container is a great hard to operate communication temptation. Again, it could be anything in there. It could be their favorite snack. It could be their favorite stuffy. Could be really anything that there is preferred or very motivating for them into a clear, hard to open container is a great way to get those words coming. Let's see. Another one is like maybe a toy or something that is difficult to operate. So they really can't do it without adult help. Let's see. So what do I have? You know what's really great are those, any kind of a wind-up toy. So you'll see them in the dollar store, those wind-up toys where you have to turn it, and then put it on the table and it goes, right? But it doesn't go for very long. So these are great because they'll run out of steam and then it'll just sit there, right? I hope this guy ever runs out of steam. There you go. And so it stops, okay? And so just sit it on the table in front of them, and they're going to want it again. So they'll pick it up and they'll do it. And usually kids will turn it the wrong way, so they can never get it to work. So then they'll hand it to you, right? So but instead of just winding it up for them and then giving it to them again, waiting. You could even tempt them by putting your fingers on the little wind up thing and waiting. So they have to say more or go or I want more or wind, just depending on what they're able to do. I do have one little soapbox that I'll get on here. As far as like modeling more and say please, you can get a whole lot done. A child can get a whole lot done with saying just more and please. So at the very beginning, if that's their first words or their first way of communicating verbally with you or with sign, that's okay. But we don't want to continue to always just model more and please, right? Because we want to build their vocabulary. So in this situation, I would be modeling other words like wind or truck or trucko, right? Rather than just saying more and please. And that's with anything. Yeah, more and please are great. Don't get me wrong. If they're not saying anything and they start to say that, that's like a celebration, right? But then we want to up the ante. So we're modeling other words for them. Yeah, like fast and go and truck and yeah, more, you could use more truck or more wind, right? So just thinking about that, like that we're not just always modeling more and please. Anyway, so hard to operate. The wind-up toys are great. What's another really easy but hard to operate thing? Would be a balloon. So most kids cannot blow up a balloon. The odd one can, but most can't. But most kids love balloons, right? So this is definitely a hard to operate item. So, and definitely probably needs an adult to help, right? So we're going to blow. Kids love the sounds that come out of it. They love being able to hit balloons, like hit them up into the air so that they don't touch the ground. See how many times we can hit them up in the air, blow it, and then let go so it goes all around the room. So yeah, so this is a great hard to operate item. So yeah, you would like maybe blow a little bit and then wait. Should we make it bigger? Should we make it smaller? If we made it smaller, it'll make a funny noise. Should we make it smaller? And wait. And they'll say yes or no or small or big or point to it. So you could, this could give you many, many opportunities for them to request more. So more air, blow, balloon. So you're going to keep doing it until it gets bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger, and then you can just let it go. And there it goes. So balloons are so much fun and kids love them. I haven't met a kid that doesn't like balloons. So that's another great hard to operate item. Let's see, what else would we have in our playroom at home? Well, this is definitely a toy that SLPs use a lot, these poppers. So you have a ball and you put it in their nose and then, or whatever popper you have. I have a bunny today. But this can be tricky because some of them are really hard to squeeze. So you're putting the ball in, which can be hard because it's a fine motor activity. So that can be hard for a little one. So they might need help to get it in there like far enough, right? So you hold it and you wait and maybe they need help. They're fumbling with it and they can't get it to work. So we're waiting and then maybe they'll hold it up to you. So that's their way of asking for help. And then, or we wait and then maybe they say help, or maybe they say in, or maybe they say ball, right? So once they give us something, whether they point or say a word or look at you, then you're going to help them put the ball in, right? But then the next one is, this is kind of a double communication temptation because they're hard to push. Their little hands aren't quite strong enough most times to be able to push it on their own. So they'll try, but it's not working, right? So you'll see that little bit of frustration. Like we said, we don't want a total meltdown, but you'll see a little bit of frustration. So we're waiting, and then maybe they'll hand it to you. And then we can model help. And then we'll wait and maybe they'll say help, right? Just remembering to give some wait time. So then you're going to take their little hands and help them and you're going to stop. And then usually there's lots of different balls that come with these things. So then that builds in more opportunities. Should we do more balls? So you're the keeper. Then you're combining strategies because now you're the keeper of the pieces again, right? So should we do more balls? Oh, okay. You want which one? Which ball? So maybe pointing at which one they want, or maybe they can say their colors, right? Or we could give them a choice. Do you want green or do you want purple? And maybe they'll point, maybe they'll say it. We can model, I want green. All right. So then you would go back to the waiting and helping them put it in and popping. So lots of opportunities just within that one little play activity. All right. So I do have another video here that will play. I'll just get it going.
Hi everyone. Today I'm going to talk about communication temptations. So this is really an extension off of my previous video from last week where I talked about verbal routines. If you watched that video, you will have seen me say lots of times the ready, set, pause, and then go, or 1, 2, 3. So giving your child that pause and wait time so that they can fill in the routine. This is very similar because you're giving them a temptation. However, it doesn't just have to be with verbal sequences. It can be with toys. So children have opportunities to communicate all day long. In their authentic environment, there are so many opportunities to communicate, right? But sometimes just having that opportunity isn't quite enough. Sometimes we have to give them an even bigger opportunity and set up the environment for them to communicate. Now, this can be communicating through gestures with sign. This can be communicating just with their eye contact and making that interaction and that social piece with you. Or it can be with words. So we're supporting communication as a whole, not just words. So the first thing I want to talk about is boxes and Tupperware containers and things that close and things that your child's little fingers have a really hard time opening. You're going to put their favorite toy in there. I recommend just one toy at a time. A lot of times with kids, especially when we're working on communication, having more than one toy is really an overload, and sensory wise an overload as well. So they're going from one thing to another and it's really hard to hone in on that specific thing that they are trying to communicate. So one toy at a time, you put it, whatever their favorite toy is. I just have a car as an example, but whatever it is, you put it in a box that they can't open, which I know seems kind of mean, but again, you're just setting up that opportunity for them. You will be opening it for them, but you take it and you set it in front of them and you wait. See what they do. Giving them this temptation is also really good for you to learn about how your child is interacting and what level they understand communication. So do they just pick it up and they bang it around and they get really mad? Okay, they haven't learned that communication interaction yet. They haven't learned that, oh, they need to give it to you, or oh, they need to sign please, or say more, mom, or whatever level they're at. They haven't learned yet that they need to verbalize that they need help with something. So you're going to teach them that, and you're going to repeat those words for them while they're learning. If they're really frustrated, obviously, like I said in my signs video, you're going to hand over hand sign with them, and then you're going to immediately open it. Oh, there's the car. And you can do this as many times as you want. So after they play with it for 30 seconds, calmly, without words, take it away, put it in the box, put it in front of them. It's going to be confusing for them at first. They're going to say, wait, why are you taking my toy away from me? But again, you're giving them that temptation so that they are more motivated to communicate. This has to be something motivating for them. So communication temptations come in lots of different toy forms. You can use boxes. Tupperware containers are great. They come in all shapes and sizes. You can really do whatever with them, but just Tupperware containers that you have in the kitchen at home. Pop some toys in there and see what your child does. Same thing with snacks and food. If your child is highly motivated by food, I recommend doing that at snack time, or put them in little baggies with the Ziplocs so that they need to communicate with you that they want that snack. Bubbles, I've shown you guys these. I'm not going to open them and do it again, but things with twist lids. So not just bubbles, but maybe Play-Doh or a jar of marbles, or again, whatever they really want. Put it in something that's hard for them to get to so that they need to communicate for you to give it to them. So you're setting them up to communicate, because a lot of times, especially with late talkers, they need to be taught that communication interaction and how to get their wants and needs met. A lot of kids, might do it already on their own, giving it to you and things like that. And that's great. But again, we really want to support their words. So when they're giving it to you, give them the word please, or open, or help. If they're not there yet, sign it for them. The last little toy I brought is a balloon. Balloons are great because you can blow it up or you can let it out and make a funny noise. And either way, it's highly motivating for the child. And this is something they're not going to be able to do on their own, blow up a balloon. So they need your help with it. Same thing with wind-up toys. Again, anything really fine motor that they're not at that level yet is a really good thing for a communication temptation. So if you need help, let me know. But really, any of their favorite toys can be put into just simple boxes like this so that they need to communicate with you that, hey, I want that so I can play with it. And that's really what it's about. You're giving them that opportunity to interact with you so that they're not just playing by themselves and doing all these things on their own. That's not communication. You want them to be interacting with you. Let me know if you have any questions. Thanks, guys.
All right. Yeah, so just it doesn't really have to be too hard. You can throw anything in a hard to open container. As long as it's something that they're motivated by, then they're gonna want to persist and try and do what they need to do in order to get what they want. We have, let's see, is this going to do the same thing? Oh, it is going to do
Hi,
this.
everyone. Today
Sorry.
I'm going
Ah, that's okay. Just got to figure out how to get to the next slide. Here we go. Let's see. There we go. All right. Thanks for waiting. You guys were doing really good waiting with me there. So the last one, which is one of my favorites, is what we call creative stupidity. So that is just, being silly and doing something unexpected. So that your child kind of takes notice and is like, wait a minute, that's not right. So an example would be like, when you're getting ready to go out to the car or go outside and say, okay, let's get our boots on. And then you're helping them get their boots on. You take the boot and you put it on their hand. And they'll be like, what? What's going on? Mom or dad is being so silly. Why are they doing this? And then kids love to correct adults or to be the teacher. So then they'll be like, no, they'll point to their foot like that goes on my foot. Or maybe they'll be like, Mom, that goes on my foot. Or maybe they'll just be foot. Or like, maybe they'll say no, something like that. They like to correct you and they want to make things right. So and another example would be like, just doing something that's unexpected. So say they're thirsty and you want to give them a drink of something. So giving them an empty cup, right? Just give them the cup, put it in front of them, and they'll be like, they're looking at it and they're like, wait a minute, I wanted a drink of juice and there's nothing in here. So then that gives them the opportunity to say, hey guys, like you forgot to give me my juice. Like, so maybe they'll point to the fridge. Well, maybe they'll be like, it's empty, or maybe they'll say the word juice. So doing something silly like that. There's lots of different things. Forgetting a favorite, like playing a favorite game, but forgetting a step or something like that. Let's see. Most people are familiar with Pop-Up Pirate. So we have our Pop-Up Pirate, and normally our pirate goes in the barrel, and then we have to pick the swords and we have to stick the swords in to see if we can tickle his toes, right? So then he'll jump out. So getting the game all ready and then getting the swords, giving your child some swords and giving yourself some swords. But then we forget about the pirate. We don't put the pirate in there. So of course your child's going to notice like, wait a minute, where's the pirate? So they'll be like either hands up or like pirate, or like, Mom, put pirate in, or pirate. Yeah, we forgot the pirate, right? Whatever their language level is. And then you're like, oh, yeah, that's right. We're going to put the pirate in, right? So just like forgetting a step of their favorite game, or another one might be, I'm just trying to think of different ones that I've done in the past. Like even just at home, like silly, like, okay, we're going to have a bath, guys. And getting them all ready for the bath, and then go into the bathroom and then there's no water in the tub. And they'll be like, what? Wait a minute. We forgot the water, right? So that gives them a situation where they need to tell you or tell you that something's wrong. Maybe you give them, give them their yogurt in a bowl, but you don't give them the spoon so that they have to ask you for a spoon, right? Just things like that. Just being silly, right? Maybe we did the boot thing, but maybe, it's really cold out and you're going to go play in the snow and you said, okay, but you forget to give them their mittens, or maybe you give them your big gloves instead of their little mittens so that they have to say, wait a minute, these are yours, not mine, right? So, we just call it, I like the name of it, creative stupidity. So we're just kind of, being silly in the moment. And it's something that you can easily do just on the fly. So just motivating them, because like we said, they love to correct us. They like to be, lots of times they think they know everything too, right? So they like to correct us or be the teacher. So just creating those opportunities for them to be able to do that is a great way to kind of stimulate and motivate those words and motivate them to request or to comment or to fix things, I guess. So those were the main ones. If we go back quickly, I know we're almost done here. But if we just to recap, so there's bit by bit, so be the keeper of the pieces. There's hard to operate, which we just talked about. There's the pause. There's putting something out of reach, right? So, and not to the point of full frustration, but a little frustration is kind of needed in order to motivate them and get them going. I did have a few slides here on just kind of what do you expect your child to say. So it really just kind of the next few slides are looking at like, okay, so my child is not saying anything right now. My child's nonverbal at this point. So how are they? The second column there is how are they primarily communicating? And then in a communication temptation, that next column over, what should we expect them to use, right? Or what are we striving for them to use? So for nonverbal kids, maybe they're communicating through facial expression, maybe some gestures, signs. They might be making some sounds, or maybe the occasional word. I have word approximation there. What that means is that it's a form of the word. It might not sound exactly how we're saying it, but it's an approximation. So it's what they're able to say. And we know, as familiar communication partners with them, we know what that means, right? So it could be like ball might be ba, right? So it's not the full word, but it's their version of the word. And then also pictures. They might be pointing to pictures to communicate to, right? So in a communication temptation, what we would expect is that we would want them to do, like if we're withholding, we're waiting for them to do something. We would expect a gesture or maybe a sound, a word approximation. So things they're already doing, maybe a single word. We're modeling single words for them. Or maybe they'll respond in a picture, using a picture. So we're just wanting more and more, like we're wanting them to use those communication attempts more and more, right? So it is really, we do like to up the ante. So maybe we're modeling those single words, but they still might respond using kind of a non-verbal mode of communication. But we want to just increase those attempts more and more and more and more. As they increase, and as they are attempting to communicate more and more and more, that's when you're going to start to see that language grow. And then we'll start to see some more single words, and then maybe start to see more two-word utterances. So that was for nonverbal. Then if we look down, maybe your child's using single words. So again, they're primarily communicating using single words, but it doesn't necessarily have to be vocal, like verbal single words. They could be signing single words. They could be pointing to single words with pictures. So they might point to a picture of more. And then in a communication temptation, we would expect, again, the things that they're already doing, but just more of those. But then also, we might be modeling more single words, modeling more two words for them to eventually start to say, right? The next one was maybe your child is putting words together in word combinations. So say 2 words. So they're using some single words, some 2-word phrases, and maybe some chunks. And when I say chunks, that's kind of when a child might say, all done, or something like that, all done, or how are you, right? That's considered a chunk. They probably learned that as one chunk. So really it's kind of a single word. So they're not necessarily putting all and done together in a 2-word phrase. They learned it as all done. So kind of a chunk, right? So thinking of that as a single word. Or, how are you? That again, probably not putting that together as a how are you, but how are you? And what was learned as one chunk. So I'm just keeping that in mind, and maybe they're putting words together, but in pictures. So maybe they're using like augmentative communication. So a core vocabulary board or an AAC device where they are pointing to pictures to talk. So, but maybe they're putting two pictures together to talk. So in a communication temptation, of course, we want to expect more of the same, but we also want to up the ante a bit and model kind of maybe 2 words plus a gesture, or maybe one of those chunks plus another word or another word, or 2 words, maybe a 3 to 4. If they're using 2 words, then maybe we would expect them to use a 3-word, or we're modeling 3 words. Just because they're motivated in the moment, they're more apt to try and put those words together, or respond in a more complex way. And then your child might be using sentences. So maybe they are 3 and they're using those 3-word sentences, 3 or 4-word sentences, but maybe they're just not using them a lot, right? Maybe they have them, but they're not using them a lot. They can communicate by using longer phrases. But then, so in a communication temptation, maybe we're making them we're modeling more of a grammatically correct sentence. So we want them to start using, is in a sentence, or maybe we're adding new vocabulary, right? Within a sentence. So just knowing that we kind of want to up the ante when they're really, really motivated, right? Because they're more apt to try and do something a little bit different, a little bit harder if they're truly, truly motivated. So that just kind of gives you an idea. You can go back and look at that see where your child is. Is my child not saying much at the moment, or are they saying lots of single words? Are they putting 2 words together, or are they actually saying phrases? And so the expectation is a little bit different in all of those cases. So we're almost finished here, but I do have a challenge for you guys. So it's called the Communication Temptation at Home Challenge. So over the next week, I want you guys to try and create an opportunity where your child is motivated to initiate and communicate what they want or they need. And again, that could be in a variety of different ways, using gestures, vocalizations, words, word combinations. So I want you to try and tempt your child to communicate just for like a 10-minute span throughout the day sometime, at least 3 times this week. So it doesn't have to be every day. If it's every day, great. That's awesome, because these are things that you can work into your everyday routines, right? But I just want you to attempt for 3 days this week, a 10-minute block of time with your child, creating those communication temptations. So you can pick from any of the following types of communication temptations. So the out of reach, the bit by bit, the pause, the hard to operate, or the creative stupidity. And I'm curious and excited to see what you guys come up with. And like I said, it can be something just on the fly that you're already doing, and you're just gonna either put something where they can't see, or they can see it, but it's out of reach, so they have to ask you for help. Or bit by bit, you're going to be the keeper of the pieces, whether that's toys or snack, or maybe it's even winter clothing. So you're getting ready to go out, but they need their hat, their mitts, their boots. So maybe you're the keeper of like the hat and the boots. So they have to ask you for their hat. They have to ask you for their boots. The pause, anything that they're really familiar with, like sayings or books or songs, you're going to start it, but then pause so that they can fill in the blank, right? Hard to operate. So that's anything that they need your help with, like those wind-up toys or those clear containers that have a hard cover on them to get off. Put anything motivating in there for them. And and see what they do. And then put it in front of them. And then remember, the key is wait and see what they do. And then the creative stupidity, just be silly. Just be silly. Make things or sabotage things in a way that they have to tell you that you did something wrong or that they want to help you fix it, right? So like the no water in the tub or the no spoon in the cereal or the soup. So just things like that, or putting the boot on your hand instead of on your foot so that they have to correct you. So that's very motivating for them to communicate to you that, oh, you made a mistake, right? And we all make mistakes. So that's good for them too, that they see us making mistakes, because then they learn, oh, it's okay if I made mistakes. I don't need to get too upset about that. So anyway, that is my challenge for you this week. 3 communication temptations for a 10-minute span sometime throughout the week. And then, yeah, I'll be curious to hear how they made out, and if it actually, got them initiating a bit more. So if you have any questions, I know I took up the whole time. So if you have any questions, you can reach out to me, or you can reach out to your school SLP regarding communication temptations. If you need ideas or any advice on it, then we are more than happy to help. Thank you so much, everyone. Have a great day.